Dr. Ishiro Honda. Despite that flub, I am well aware of who Ishiro Honda is. Director Ishiro Honda has created countless giant monster movies throughout the years, alongside effects pioneer Eiji Tsuburaya, producer Tomoyuki Tanaka, and composer Akira Ifukube. Each were masters of their craft and put together some of the finest examples the kaiju genre has to offer. Films like Rodan, Mothra, and War of the Gargantuas, just to name a few. All have showcased the remarkable talents of these men, yet out of all their accomplishments, the original 1954 Godzilla has to be their grandest. The cast of characters, effects work, musical themes, and overall atmosphere keeps it up on the highest of pedestals. Many of their other works have come close, but none have seemed to match it. Even entries from other filmmakers in the franchise have struggled to reach its level. That is, except for one. Mothra vs. Godzilla is undoubtedly the film in question, also known here in the States as Godzilla vs. the Thing. Hey, wait a minute. Godzilla has never fought the... Oh, I guess he has. But that wouldn't be until March of 1979. Jokes aside, Mothra vs. Godzilla is often heavily considered to be one of, if not the best sequels in the series as a whole. While King Kong vs. Godzilla may have popularized pitting Godzilla opposite of other kaiju, Mothra vs. Godzilla refined it. The film combines comedic elements with a more serious plot, and the final product is one of Toho's best science fiction pieces. So many factors play into why the sequel is so great, one of which being the storytelling. The plot focuses around the arrival of a giant egg in Japan's shorelines following the aftermath of a heavy storm. It ends up being bought by two businessmen, Kumiyama and Torihata, of Happy Enterprises, who plan on exploiting this as a giant tourist attraction. The egg, of course, belongs to Mothra, and the Shobijin want it back. They seek help from news reporter Ichiro Sakai, photographer Junko Nakanishi, or Yoka in the English dub, and Professor Miura, who tried studying the egg earlier but was shut down by Kumiyama. However, when their attempts to convince the businessmen fail, the Shobijin head back to Infant Island, but thank our protagonists for their kindness. In the wake of this, Godzilla resurfaces in one of his more iconic entrances to bring about more havoc across Japanese soil. When man-made weaponry isn't enough to bring down the king of the monsters, our main protagonist must travel to Infant Island to get Mothra's aid in order to stop Godzilla's mayhem. The natives are irritated by this request, as not only was the egg not returned to them, but their island has been used as a testing ground for the atomic bombs. As a result, Infant Island and their people have suffered because of human recklessness. You can feel the antipathy they have towards humanity, and understandably so. I've already gone on record as to say how some of the best entries in the Godzilla series have compelling stories and characters to go along with them. Mothra vs. Godzilla is no exception, as we are given likable protagonists with crystal clear motivations. On top of that, every actor and actress put their all into their performances, especially in scenes like this. You can really feel the weight of the situation at hand. Eventually, a weak Mothra does end up offering her assistance as a way of employing the themes of unity, showing that despite our differences, mankind should work together instead of having hate in our hearts towards one another. This is a very common theme throughout most of Ishiro Honda's flicks, and that aspect is pulled off extremely well here. What also helps is how Mothra is handled. She is essentially the light in contrast to the darkness that is Godzilla. In addition to that, the film also follows another theme set up by previous entries. The idea of businessmen who are only in it for the profit was also utilized in 1961's Mothra, and to a degree in 1962's King Kong vs. Godzilla. You could even call it a Toho trope. It's a rather simple narrative to tell, but one that can be looked upon as relatable to the audience, as we have all seen people like this in our lives. Instead of hamming it up, they are portrayed in a more realistic fashion, showing just how obtuse Kumiyama and Torihata really are. Furthermore, they come off as very smug with their treatment of others along with the greedy decision-making, so it isn't very difficult to find yourself disliking the pair. If anything, it just makes the audience all the more interested in seeing these guys get their comeuppance. And so they do. Kumiyama's story comes to an end during an act of violence that may catch newer viewers by surprise. Torihata's fate is sealed by Godzilla no less, making yet another iconic entrance in this film. All of this leads to the first confrontation of Godzilla and Mothra, and it's a damn good one. Godzilla sets his eyes on the egg, but Mothra isn't having any of that. Throughout the entire fight, Mothra is seen using whatever she has in her arsenal to keep Godzilla down. However, once his atomic breath hits the mark, Mothra's flame of life diffuses, which was already fading away to begin with, thus meeting an end next to her unhatched egg. A tragic conclusion, which is only amplified by Akira Ifukube's incredible score. The wirework here by Eiji Tsuburaya and his effects crew is nothing short of superb. You can really tell they are at the top of their A game here, as Mothra appears to be very lifelike. Her movements actually appear insect-like, something of which wouldn't be seen from her arguably again until later installments like Tokyo SOS. There has been some other wire work that looks really impressive in this genre, but nothing can hold a candle to the amount of detail Tsuburaya and company put into this. Along with Mothra's effects, whenever Godzilla goes up against the Special Defense Forces, it's a visual treat. An encounter even takes place earlier on in the film between Godzilla and the United States military, but the only way to view this is by seeking out the English version, Godzilla vs. the Thing. It's an enjoyably unique sequence as it's one of the few times America tries to contend with Godzilla in a Toho production. Every time I watch these scenes, I always feel engaged in what's occurring on screen. That right there is the power of E.G. Tsuburaya. They all throw everything that's available at the nuclear Leviathan, but he keeps pushing forward. Godzilla's demeanor and presence in this almost embodies that of his portrayal in 1954. The only real downside is how clumsy he tends to be. Along with the skillfully carried out effects work, we have Akira Ifukube's musical score, which I've already mentioned before is incredible. In my honest opinion, this is the film where Ifukube completely pulls off Godzilla's theme. It sounds menacing, which is a perfect fit for this villainous Godzilla. Ifukube's take on Mothra is quite beautiful and in some cases haunting, to say the least. His theme for her really complements the elegance that Mothra presents. Because of Akira Ifukube's dedication to his craft, these two themes have become very synonymous with both characters and are still being utilized to this very day. Understandably too, as this is without a doubt one of his finest scores from the Godzilla series. You can tell when a soundtrack is good when you are able to listen to it on its own, and frankly I find myself coming back to this one all the time. The climax is set once Mothra's egg hatches to reveal larva twins. Meanwhile, Godzilla, who makes yet another fine entrance, finds his way near an island that just so happens to have a group of children and teachers on it. I know I'm not alone when I'm saying this part of the story just feels tacked on. It has no reason to be here other than giving our main characters something to do. To no one's shock, the children and teachers end up being saved. I can excuse this for the fight that ensues between the Mothra larva and Godzilla. While not as compelling as the first encounter Godzilla has, I find myself being thoroughly entertained by this matchup. The Mothra larvae spend most of their time hiding while constantly spraying their silk at Godzilla. It goes back and forth for a while, which just ends up annoying Godzilla. One of the larvae even bites his tail and ultimately gets flung around for its troubles. Although this may not sound riveting to some folk, I assure you that the overall execution of the scene is what makes it a great watch. The Mothra larvae are displayed as true underdogs in this fight, which is why it's really satisfying to see them both bring Godzilla down in the end. While some may find it disappointing that this is the outcome, it isn't the first time Godzilla has been defeated by another monster. You can thank King Kong for his first loss. On top of that, Godzilla's an antagonist here, so he should be vanquished in some capacity by the end of the film. After he plummets into the ocean, the Mothra larvae start their journey back to their home of Infant Island, thus bringing the story to its conclusion. Mothra vs. Godzilla is a true testament of its time. It was a film that really pushed the tokusatsu genre to a whole new level, and it's very hard to not see why. The script written by Shinichi Sekizawa is sensational, fully delivering on the dramatic aspects of the human characters while also maintaining a great balance with the monster action. Ishiro Honda always had a way of leaving an impression whenever he was in the director's chair, which just goes to show you how talented the man was. After all, he was responsible for creating some of the most important entries in the Godzilla series. His effectiveness was at its peak whenever he had the helping hands of Ifukube, Tanaka, and Tsuburaya by his side. I would definitely recommend this to someone who's new to kaiju movies, as it gives them a proper introduction to both Godzilla and Mothra. It carries over what their initial portrayals pulled off effectively and adds to it. As stated before, there are many other favorites in the franchise that have come close to matching the quality of the original 1954 film, but Mothra vs. Godzilla is by far one of the top contenders. With its all-star cast, stupendous soundtrack, and excellent effects work, Mothra vs. Godzilla perfectly encapsulates exactly what it takes to put together a sequel for the ages. So what do you all think? Is Mothra vs. Godzilla a perfect sequel, or do you have another film in mind? Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos just like this one, and as always, take care everyone. I'll see you down the line.